Chapter 8:16 I will wait for you to make a triumphant return. The day that Ting had reached the campsite, the large overseas organizations suddenly realized that the Heavenly Network troops had started to withdraw. The Heavenly Network soldiers, who were brave and not afraid of death, seemed to be retreating. But the metahumans from the large organizations did not think that the situation was as simple as it seemed. Everyone had seen the Heavenly Network's resolve and will to fight. They would not suddenly be afraid and retreat. Half a month had passed since the war at the Changbai Mountains had begun. No matter how arrogant the overseas metahumans were, they did not dare to take the Heavenly Network practitioners lightly. It was as if those practitioners had gone mad in the forest. Those who could only engage in close combat were not afraid of elemental-type metahumans. They would even sacrifice themselves to help their comrades. There was a moment when the overseas metahumans felt that there was a flame in the heart of every Heavenly Network practitioner. Ting was standing in the center of the campsite with his hands behind his back. In front of him was 20,000 sets of neatly arranged bronze armor. They silently lay on the floor, as if they were silently waiting for their owner to return. Hao Jichao, Yu Mingyu, Feng Yaming and the rest surrounded and protected Ting. They quietly waited. The next moment, the most elite Heavenly Network practitioners walked towards the bronze armor and put the armor on. Everyone had their own place. Then, the teams who had withdrawn from the forest rushed towards the campsite and put on the bronze armor that belonged to them. The campsite was filled with people. In front of Ting was a seemingly endless sea of bronze. Unlike metahumans from large organizations overseas, the practitioners in the Heavenly Network had been through meticulous training. After everyone put on the bronze armor, they were as tall as lofty mountains. It was as if the distance between each practitioner had been measured out with a ruler. Everyone stood in silence, but the people underneath the armor were like fire. It was so hot that the ceiling might burn. Ting calmly said, "Our ancestors have fought so that we can use swords in our hands to protect our home. Everyone, you are not fighting for me. You are fighting for yourself, for your family, and for the ancestors who are sleeping in the cemeteries. Go. I will wait for you to make a triumphant return." Ting's calm voice was loud and wide. It could be heard even from a distance. Suddenly, there was a roar among the sea of bronze. "All those who enter our borders will die. All those who enter our borders will die. All those who enter our borders will die." The massive flood of bronze turned towards the forest of the Changbai Mountains. They were like a flood that swept across the entire forest, full of murderous intent. In reality, the best course of action for the Heavenly Network was to pull in their line of defense, then find the best position to attack the enemy. This was because the overseas organizations would still have the upper hand in the forest. If they could intentionally give the opponent some territory and adjust their formation, it would make the fight much easier. But the practitioners of the Heavenly Network did not think this way. There were no gains or losses in this war, because every piece of land had to be protected. Life and death was not important. All those who entered their territory would die. This was the most important thing to them. The metahumans from the large overseas organizations carefully tried to push their borders. Their objective was to push their line of defense to the west of the sword formation and control the area there. The large organizations knew about the massacre at the Ladder River and Tiger Back. Thus, they immediately sent out their best troops to make up for this gap. They even hoped to be able to surround and kill all the Heavenly Network practitioners on that line of defense. But at that moment, there was the thunderous sound of footsteps in the distance. The footsteps were approaching them very quickly. It did not seem like they were on the hunt among the trees. Under normal circumstances, they would carefully advance and prevent themselves from being ambushed. At the next moment, countless bronze soldiers suddenly appeared from between the trees. They had strong chemistry amongst themselves. They were like a single being. It sounded as if 1,000 soldiers were heading towards them. The flood of bronze was about to defeat their enemies with ease. In their shock, the practitioners used their abilities to attack in a flurry. But they suddenly realized that the bronze armor was like a magical item. It could resist their elemental attacks. Before they could come up with a solution, the bronze-armored soldiers had pounced on them. A big and tall bronze-armored soldier suddenly charged towards the small team. They were dressed in the mighty bronze armor, which made them seem like a mobile weapon. Die. The mighty bronze-armored soldier attacked the metahuman in front of him and sliced him into two halves. The other metahumans tried to surround and kill this bronze-armored soldier. But as he was delivering his final blow, he suddenly activated his flying sword and continued to kill. With the protection of the bronze armor, he did not have to worry about being injured. He charged straight into the enemy's formation in a disorderly manner. Some people in the large overseas organizations knew that the Heavenly Network had obtained the armor. After all, there were so many sets of bronze armor left behind that even Chin Bailey's invisible storage equipment could not store all of it. Thus, the information would surely spread. But no one thought that the Heavenly Network would suddenly use the armor here. They had used the armor to create an overwhelming turn of events in the war. Some teams had heard the commotion and came over. But when they saw the sea of bronze, they turned and ran. The mighty bronze soldier laughed out loud. Chen Zuan is here. Who dares to challenge me? There were also times when Chen Zuan was very daring. The flame within the Heavenly Network practitioners burned stronger and stronger. The two Heavenly Kings, Feng Yeming and Feng Yinlu, had teamed up. They did not wear the bronze armor. Instead, they roamed freely in the forest. The bronze-armored soldiers were ready to attack at any time. The entire team was like an arrow that charged through the forest. The two Heavenly Kings had many unusual methods. The Heavenly Network practitioners who had played games could see some gaming elements in their methods. Suddenly, the flood of bronze encountered many teams. They heard Feng Yinlu shout, "Demacia won." Then, a massive sword appeared in his hands and he charged towards the opponent. Before Feng Yinlu could get closer to them, Feng Yeming could be heard uttering, "How rash." Then, he also shouted, "Demacia," and charged forward as well. Of course, they had many other methods. This way, the war would become more bloody. Now, the Heavenly Network needed to use blood to cleanse the Changbai Mountains. For half a month, the lines of defense had been at a standstill. But now, it was different. The flood of bronze did not stop. They continued to advance forward. Battle cries could be heard in the Changbai Mountains. But no one expected that the most dazzling soldier in this battle would be Chen Zuan. Chapter 817, The New Owner of the Xan Ting Sword. Chair Mountain in the Changbai Mountains was once a very popular place among overseas metahumans. Many operation squads often rested there. There were many advantageous places where they could lie in ambush and wait for the Heavenly Network operation squads. Behind them was the Chair Mountain, and in front of them was a barrier that could defend them. There was no place more suitable than this. After the overseas operation squads rested, they could continue traveling deeper into the mountains. Gradually, this became a base that was easy for the large overseas organizations to progress to. Typically, when night fell, many overseas operation squads would gather here. However, the person in charge of guarding the Chair Mountain felt that something was strange tonight. The sky had already started to darken, but no one had returned to rest. This was unusual. It was as if something strange had happened. Suddenly, everyone in the campsite heard the thunderous sound of footsteps. Everyone looked at one another helplessly. What was happening? Why did it sound like 10,000 horses were galloping here? Were there horses in the forest? There was a sudden scream from the back of the campsite. Everyone turned around and to their shock, they saw a crowd of bronze-armored soldiers running down the slope. The bronze armor helped to cushion the impact of falling from such a height. Thus, even the mountain ridges that were impossible for practitioners to cross were not an obstacle to them. The flood of bronze was about to enter the campsite. Some bronze-armored soldiers approached the campsite from the barrier and started to kill. One of the Class Bs from the Phoenix Society looked very serious. He opened his palm and pointed it to the mountain ridges. Suddenly, the temperature in the mountain ridges dropped. Snow and ice started to cover the mountain ridges. The bronze-armored soldier felt very cold. It was as if their blood was about to freeze. They started to slow down. At this critical moment, Chen Zuan suddenly opened his mouth and breathed in. The air in the campsite seemed to have been sucked away by Chen Zuan. The Class B metahuman from the Phoenix Society suddenly realized that his elemental powers had been sucked away by Chen Zuan. What was this ability? Was he able to eat his elemental powers? Chen Zuan was also pleasantly surprised. In the past, he could only use this ability to eat. He did not think that his idea would allow him to suck all of the opponent's elemental powers. There did not seem to be any side effects. He just felt a little cold. The icy cold element gathered in his stomach and started to churn. But because Chen Zuan had drunk too much magical liquid back then, his stomach had become very strong since he had to digest the magical liquid. Chen Zuan was happy because he could do more than just eat. Or, after Chen Zuan had advanced to Class B, his abilities had finally improved. Sorrowful wails could be heard from the campsite. Some of the metahumans knew that they could not escape the bronze-armored soldiers. There was no way out for them. But the bronze-armored soldiers were not rash. 6 soldiers formed one team and attacked. No matter which direction the attack came from, they would have to face 3 people. No matter which direction they fled to, they would be met with a formation. Back then, when the Heavenly Network obtained the bronze armor, they started to research on how to make full use of the armor. On one hand, they had to train the commanders to carry out group attacks. On the other hand, they had to become stronger to support the bronze armor. The Heavenly Network had now fulfilled both of these criteria. The originally large battlefield had been narrowed down into a small battlefield. The formations were like millstones that pressed against one another and turned the overseas metahumans into dust. The expert from the Phoenix Society saw that the situation could no longer be salvaged and tried to retreat. His body was surrounded by a white fog. All the bronze-armored soldiers who tried to approach him were slowed down due to the low temperatures. Those who were closest to him could feel frostbite developing on their bodies. Ordinary Class B metahumans were not so strong. This was a true expert sent by the Phoenix Society to supervise military operations. Some overseas metahumans wanted to follow him. But no one expected that the expert from the Phoenix Society was not planning to take anyone with him. Some people shouted, "Please save us." The ice-type metahuman from the Phoenix Society turned around and kicked the metahuman. "Stay here and fight. Who allowed you to leave?" Chen Zuan led the bronze-armored soldiers. But he realized that his new ability was no match for the top expert in the Phoenix Society. The expert tried to break away and headed north. But when Chen Zuan tried to stop him, a large tree was suddenly chopped and collapsed. The sword was soul-stirring. The invisible blade had cleanly chopped the tree in half. Someone was waiting in ambush on the tree. Chen Zuan was shocked. He had seen this sword before. But Heavenly King Nya could no longer attack, right? Since when was he hiding in the tree? Chen Zuan had not sensed him. Even the expert from the Phoenix Society had not sensed him. When the sword appeared, the expert from the Phoenix Society tried to make an ice wall to protect himself. But the ice wall was too weak, or the sword was too strong. Chao Qingxi's slender figure descended from the sky. The sound of the ice wall breaking sounded like a screen shattering. The sword seemed unstoppable once it took action. But to Chen Zuan's surprise, the sword in Chao Qingxi's hands was the Xianting sword. After Chao Qingxi had disappeared from Luo City, no one knew where she had gone. Chen Zuan had tried to call her, but to no avail. Even when he asked the other practitioners in the Heavenly Network, no one knew where she had gone. But now, she had appeared with the Xianting sword. She used the sword and attacked the expert from the Phoenix Society. Chao Qingxi silently looked at the expert from the Phoenix Society as he lay in a puddle of blood. She waited until his eyes were closed before she turned away. She took away his invisible storage equipment and ran into the forest. For some reason, Chen Zuan felt that she was one with the forest. She was truly the best assassin. When the Flood of Bronze saw this, they were extremely touched. They did not dare to talk to Chao Qingxi, but the attractive sight of her killing the expert had been etched in their hearts. She held the Xianting sword in her hands. She seemed as mighty as Heavenly King Ye. It was hard to imagine that a girl would have this kind of aura. Everyone understood that not only was the Flood of Bronze fighting, many others were also doing their best in other places. They were doing this all for the same principle: all those who enter our borders will die. Chapter 8:18 Unexpected Disaster. The Tigerback campsite was to the east of the Heavenly Lake. If Lu Shu did not take a look for himself, it would have been very difficult for him to imagine that it was a military base. The saint and the bishop were still in the outskirts. They were still at Port Artyom. Although the Tigerback was only second in importance, Lu Shu was shocked by the utter chaos here. Some of the relaxed metahumans were like mercenaries. They were scattered around the campsite. The floor was full of beer bottles. Even those from large organizations did not care about this. Many females were gathered here. Even vendors selling cigarettes and alcohol had come here, as the metahumans here spent money like water. The large overseas organizations did not demand a high level of loyalty from the secret practitioners. After all, if they were treated like slaves, it would be difficult to handle the complaints of thousands of secret practitioners. These were like miscellaneous troops. They just wanted to win with numbers. Or, the large organizations did not care about their lives. When Lu Shu was walking around, he realized that some of these overseas secret practitioners had been brainwashed. They felt that as long as Nye Ting did not attack, victory would be theirs. All of them knew that the Heavenly Network only had 40,000 practitioners in the Changbai Mountains, while there were 300,000 practitioners here and at Port Artyom. Lu Shu realized that since everyone knew these numbers, someone had been spreading information. Later on, he found out that many of the teams from the large organizations had returned to the Tigerback campsite without fighting. This was the result of his careful observation. This meant that many secret practitioners went out to play and returned. After they returned, they would still exaggerate that there was no danger out there. Some went out to drink alcohol and boasted about how mighty they were when they encountered the Heavenly Network, who collapsed at the first blow. It was as if the large organizations had given the secret practitioners the false impression that this was a leisurely affair. They would then trick some of the secret practitioners to their deaths and waste the Heavenly Network's energy. This was very effective. Lu Shu felt that if he were to tell them that Heavenly Network would wipe them out, many people would treat it as a joke. The secret practitioners who had died could not tell the others the danger that they had encountered. It was as if no one had died. Lu Shu was puzzled. Did the secret practitioners not have any friends in the campsite who would remember them? Suddenly, he realized that the secret practitioners were not too familiar with one another. They did not particularly like to group together. They were only familiar with the people in the same group as them. If someone was killed, everyone from the group would be killed as well. No one else would remember them. There were just too many people in the campsite. The wastewater was very foul-smelling, but everyone seemed to have gotten used to it. Lu Shu only realized now how important the sewage system in the cities were. If not, how smelly would the wastewater generated by millions of people every day be? Every day, the first thing that these metahumans did was to drink alcohol. Then, they would find female metahumans who relied on others to survive. The female metahumans were not the only ones. There were others who came here to do business. Alcohol was free as the large organizations had provided it for them. The females who were seeking business here were probably recruited by the large organizations. There were even balls at night. It was like heaven on earth. Lu Shu walked around in the tiger-back campsite and furrowed his eyebrows. The people here were foolish. He tried to tell someone how frightening the heavenly network, but the person did not believe him. Even the massacre on the spies and overseas organizations by the heavenly network had seemed to be forgotten. The large organizations are just giving these idiots fake alcohol. Lu Shu was speechless. He even suspected that the large organizations had put even worse things into the alcohol, for example addictive drugs. Of course, this was just Lu Shu's suspicion. He did not have any proof. Many of these secret practitioners seemed to be addicted to alcohol, but had not seemed to have gone mad. Was it because the dosage was very small? What should he do? Lu Shu came here because he had wanted to find the controller who was behind the scenes, or lie in ambush here. He wanted to launch a deadly attack on the large overseas organizations at the most crucial moment. He had found clues, but in front of him were messy secret practitioners. But Lu Shu also encountered many people from the large organizations. They were different from the secret practitioners. They did not drink alcohol, but they liked to chat with groups of people. Once they started to talk, they would control the conversation and start to talk endlessly. Lu Shu stared at them and decided to lie low, at ease for now. To catch brigands, first catch their kings. He felt that he would definitely be able to find an important opportunity. Night had fallen. Lu Shu set up his own tent at the border of the campsite, near to the forest. This position would allow him to easily escape into the forest if he was discovered. This was also the closest place to the Heavenly Network campsite. But the probability of him being recognized was not very high. He had put on his hood and walked around, but no one recognized him. It seemed like the large organizations were still not too familiar with the ninth Heavenly King. Lu Shu was upset. He was a Heavenly King. Why should he lie low and not advertise himself? He had just set up his tent when he suddenly heard the thunderous sound of footsteps. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. What was this? Did a creature run away? No, all the creatures in the Changbai Mountains had escaped. Furthermore, this thunderous sound was somewhat familiar. Lu Shu felt that he had heard this sound before. The next moment, Lu Shu saw the bronze-armored soldiers emerge from the forest, ready to kill. Their faces were hidden by the armor. They were like the Grim Reaper, who had emerged from the depths of hell to kill. The bronze-armored soldiers got into formation. They were like a flood of attack. They were not afraid to die. Lu Shu was all too familiar with this scene. He had trained the flood of bronze by himself. It was also because he had created the flood of bronze that Nie Ting and the rest knew how frightening the bronze armor was in group combat. 20,000 sets of armor had been equipped. The thunderous sound of footsteps was like their shouts of madness. Lu Shu was touched. The current Heavenly Network. Before he could finish thinking, the bronze-armored soldier in front suddenly pointed at Lu Shu. All those who enter our borders will die. Lu Shu wanted to proclaim that he was the ninth Heavenly King. The Chinese did not kill their own countrymen. The flood of bronze shouted, "Beware of disguises. All those who are not in bronze armor will die." Lu Shu was dumbfounded. What? Lu Shu was annoyed. He had been mistaken. Now, he did not know whether saying that he was the ninth Heavenly King in this chaos would be of any use. Lu Shu turned and ran. He did not even care about his tent. What an unexpected disaster. This time, his character had not been destroyed. Could you just let me lie low this time? Chapter 8:19, Hell on Earth. It had been a perfect situation, where no one had discovered him. He had not done anything too intense that destroyed his character. But the entire campsite had collapsed. Lu Shu felt that perhaps this was fate. Lu Xiaoyu had prepared a luxurious outdoor tent for him. She had also bought snacks for him, but they were still in the tent. He had no time to take them. He turned and ran for his life. Of course, the secret practitioners could not run as fast as him. The secret practitioners did not expect that the tigerback campsite would be attacked so viciously. Many of the secret practitioners were drunk and did not realize that the flood of bronze had arrived. Some were killed even before they had pulled up their pants. This was a real war. There would be no mercy. Lu Shu ran through the crowd. Suddenly, he shouted in English, "Retreat to Port Artyom." Lu Shu had understood the situation. The moment the bronze-armored soldiers appeared, the secret practitioners would have no way to resist them. This would be a massacre. Forget about the secret practitioners. The elite practitioners from the large organizations might have a hard time as well, since the flood of bronze had the advantage of manpower. Thus, the tigerback campsite was done for. It was over the moment the flood of bronze appeared. What Lu Shu wanted to do was send people running to Port Artyom. He would then hide in the crowd and run there. Lu Shu had not gone to Port Artyom because the large organizations had already built an impregnable fortress there. He would not have information support from the Heavenly Network once he entered the fortress. His character would be destroyed if he let his guard down. But this was a God-sent opportunity to go there. It was the best time for him to lie low in Port Artyom. But Lu Shu recalled his tent. He did not know who pointed him out. The low, muffled voice from inside the armor sounded familiar, but he could not recall who it was. Lu Shu could not stand this humiliation. But there were so many people in the Heavenly Network. How would he be able to find the culprit? Lu Shu was the one who had obtained the bronze armor. He had also discovered the assault troops. How could they attack him? Lu Shu turned around and saw the same bronze-armored soldier who had chased him, roaring, "I am Chen Zuan. Who dares to fight me?" Lu Shu gave a cold laugh. "Ha! Ha! You are done for." Suddenly, the mighty Chen Zuan felt a cold shiver down his spine. He softly said, "Why do I suddenly feel a bit scared?" Chang Qiuqiao, who was beside him, said in a low, muffled voice, "Look at the tent beneath your feet. Don't you think that it looks like the one Lu Xiaoyu bought for Brother Shu?" From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 999. Shit. Chen Zuan looked around and tried to find Lu Shu. No wonder he felt that there was something wrong with the young man in a hood. What do I do? I feel panicky. It's fine. You know how Brother Shu is like, right? Chang Qiuqiao tried to comfort him. It's precisely because I know how he's like. That's why I'm panicking. Many Heavenly Network practitioners were curious. From then on, Chen Zuan never shouted, "I am Chen Zuan. Who dares to fight me?" It sounded very mighty. Why did he not continue saying it? The flood of bronze started killing everyone in the campsite. Just one assault made those secret practitioners understand the massive difference in strength between them and the Heavenly Network. They were worlds apart. In reality, many people thought that the Heavenly Network wanted to eliminate the assault troops in the forest. But they did not expect that the Heavenly Network had wanted to destroy the tigerback campsite from the very beginning. The secret practitioners fled in confusion. They could not put up an effective defense for the large organizations. The members of the large organizations among the secret practitioners tried to make them go back and kill the enemy. They reasoned that they had 100,000 people, while the Heavenly Network only had 20,000 people. But the moment the flood of bronze appeared, the lie that the large organizations had created fell through. The secret practitioners were of a low social class. Many of them were like Li Dian and Wang Zhe. But the problem was, Li Dian and Wang Zhe were not dumb. They would take advantage of benefits, but would leave danger to others. An army in flight was like a landslide. Very few people would be able to attempt to save a desperate situation when they were about to lose. Lu Shu silently followed the crowd and retreated east. There were too many secret practitioners. This meant that the Heavenly Network could not possibly kill all of them. He made a quick calculation. 40 to 50,000 secret practitioners out of the 100,000 would die here. If the Heavenly Network did not continue chasing them beyond the border, then a majority of the secret practitioners would be able to escape to Port Artyom. Lu Shu did not feel that it was a good idea for the Flood of Bronze to continue chasing and killing the secret practitioners. After all, there were Class A experts at the border eyeing them up. If they continued to chase the secret practitioners, they might fall into a trap. He slowly ran towards the members of the large organizations among the secret practitioners. Lu Shu had been eyeing them for a long time. These people were still trying to make the secret practitioners turn back and fight. Lu Shu quickly ran through the crowd. The sparrow shade moved along with him and pierced through the bodies of the members from the large organizations. No one noticed how the people lying on the floor had died among the chaos. The strands of the sparrow shade were very thin. So thin that blood only appeared from their mouths, noses, and wounds a long time after Lu Shu killed them. After he finished killing people, Lu Shu disguised himself as a secret practitioner and continued to run. He was very fast, faster than most of the secret practitioners. The Flood of Bronze continued to kill the secret practitioners. Some of their standard long swords had snapped. They could only fight barehanded. The Flood of Bronze had not stopped for an entire day. Everyone was very tired, but victory was just right in front of them, even if it was just a temporary victory. They did not care even if they died, as long as they killed the invaders in the Changbai Mountains. The entire tigerback campsite was stained red with blood. The ground became muddy because of the blood. The secret practitioners wailed and cried as they ran. This scene made Lu Shu felt as if he was in hell. But the soldiers from hell made Lu Shu very touched. For some reason, Lu Shu felt that he liked this scene. The air was thick with distress. It was addictive. No. Lu Shu shook his head and continued to run. Suddenly, someone grabbed Lu Shu's clothes. Lu Shu turned and looked behind him. The sparrow shade was ready to strike. A beautiful female secret practitioner had stopped him. She had even put on makeup. Lu Shu did not quite understand how putting on makeup would be useful in this war. But Lu Shu felt that with her looks, she would be pursued by ordinary people as well. You are the fastest among the secret practitioners. If you take me with you, I'll be yours. I'm very clean. No one has touched me, said the female secret practitioner. Chapter 820 Magic Show. Lu Shu had always been vigilant. The controller had wanted Lu Shu to come to the Changbai Mountains. He had even revealed some details about Lu Xiaoyu's secret, as if they were waiting for him to come. He was now here. He wanted to see what they were up to. Lu Shu had always been on the lookout for any special people or incidents. He had tried to find clues about the controller from every incident that happened on the Changbai Mountains. But at this moment, a beautiful girl had suddenly pulled on Lu Shu's clothes and wanted Lu Shu to take her away. He carefully observed her. There were only waves of energy from a Class D. If she did not have anything to block her waves of energy, Lu Shu could kill her in seconds. But a girl suddenly pulling on his clothes now was very strange. Had his presence in the Changbai Mountains been exposed to the controller? No. Lu Shu did not think that they were infinitely resourceful. Even the Heavenly Network could not recognize their 9th Heavenly King. How could a stranger be any better? Lu Shu did not believe that there was anyone in this world who was omniscient and omnipotent. He recalled Chen Zuan and got slightly angry. Of course, Lu Shu had only started thinking about how long the controller would be able to wait since he arrived at the Changbai Mountains 2 days ago. He looked down on people who carried out such plans while hiding behind the scenes. He suspected that they were not as strong as he had imagined. They were like a magician. Everything seemed like an illusion during the performance. But after the secret was revealed, many felt that the performance was just decent. Some liked to know the secret behind magic tricks as their curiosity spurred them to uncover the truth. Others just liked to watch the performance. They liked mystery and entertainment in their lives. As for Lu Shu, he decided to kill the magician. He had become a participant in this performance without his knowledge. This made Lu Shu rather unhappy. "Are you going to pay me for this?" When the beautiful lady saw that Lu Shu did not intend to take her away, she said in a pitiful voice, "I am very clean. If you take me away, I'll be yours." "You've struck lucky." Lu Shu was unhappy. "Who are you talking to? You speak as if I'm not clean." From Cloud Yi's distress, plus 199. What? Lu Shu felt goosebumps forming. Cloud Yi? She was a puppet master, right? Why were there waves of energy from just a Class D? Sister, this is cheating. Lu Shu carefully observed her. From the shape of her face, she was indeed Cloud Yi. But she had become a completely different person with just some makeup. No wonder makeup was called one of the 4 great methods of witchcraft in Asia. She looked completely different. But Lu Shu also knew that many other girls could do this. Light makeup, barefaced, heavy makeup, a girl could look like 3 completely different people. This meant that she had already known who he was, right? Definitely. He was very sure that she recognized him. If not, why would Cloud Yi find him out of the thousands of secret practitioners here? She definitely had an aim in mind. Cloud Yi was still in character. Since when did I say that you're not clean? Before she could finish speaking, Lu Shu bowed. I'm not clean. Cloud Yi was speechless. Lu Shu turned and ran. But Lu Shu was puzzled. What, all along, he had guessed that the puppet masters were behind this. After all, the puppet masters were the only ones in the entire realm of cultivation whose origins were unclear. They would be most suitable to carry out schemes behind the scenes, right? The fact that the puppet masters had protected the Kunlun Mountains had confused Lu Shu even more. Were they the rebels in the legends? Were they? Lu Shu had never seen any rebels who protected the world. That would be outrageous. Lu Shu's impression of the puppet masters now was confusing. But Lu Shu was even more confused. Were they here to kill him? If they were the ones behind this, that would be the best opportunity to do so. To be honest, Lu Shu had only cared about following the crowd to run away from the tigerback. He had not noticed Cloud Yi approaching him. If she were to attack then, Lu Shu might have died. Then, if the puppet masters were not behind this, who was? There was another problem. How mysterious were the puppet masters? Why did they want to approach him in this crowd? But at least, they did not attack him. They did not even seem like a threat to him. With this encounter, Lu Shu could only hold his doubts as he ran. After a while, Lu Shu turned around and realized that Cloud Yi was not following him. He could finally be at ease. But the first thing that Lu Shu did was to notify Nie Ting. The puppet masters are here. Be careful. Lu Shu did not know why the puppet masters took part in this war. He did not know what Cloud Yi was plotting against him. But he felt that he should distance himself from her. Suddenly, a female practitioner pulled on Lu Shu's clothes again. Take me away. Before she could finish speaking, Lu Shu ran away. The female practitioner was almost thrown to the ground by the massive inertia. Cloud Yi silently stood in the battlefield and watched as Lu Shu ran. She broke into a smile. She wiped the makeup off her face. Somehow, she had managed to wipe her makeup clean without a trace. When she was removing her makeup, many secret practitioners who were running away could not help but look at her. Others put on makeup to look pretty, but Cloudy put on makeup to conceal her colors. A robust man walked towards Cloudy and laughed. Did he recognize you? He should know that I'm the puppet master. Although I don't know how he did it. Cloudy's words were full of information. Tiger Ji did not notice. He has many secrets. Have you forgotten how the old king of gods was infinitely resourceful? He knew the names of others even before they introduced themselves. Cloudy did not continue talking about this. She said, "You're right. He's not quite the same as the old king. But for some reason, I like this kind of king more. I see that he bowed to you." Cloudy, today might be the peak of your life, Tiger Ji laughed. For some reason, Cloudy suddenly laughed silently. This smile made her look very charming. Looks like the king doesn't need our protection. Let's get down to business.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty. Man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens to tell us things that we better.